Why are you doing a study on the business principles or the business secrets of the Bible? And frankly, I'm doing it because I know I'm supposed to be doing it, but I also am doing it, from a spiritual point. I know I'm supposed to do it. From a head standpoint, I know that I deal with a lot of people in my world that also share my faith that have some problem with money. Okay, I'm not sure why they think that if you have the stronger your faith, the lower your checking account should be. But there is absolutely no truth to that. That we hear that, oh, money's the root of all evil. No, it's not. The love of money is the root of all evil. God has a purpose in money. Every single dollar belongs to him. So don't you ever wonder why more dollars go to other people than they come to you. And there are reasons for that. Most of this, if not all of this study, really is based on, a lot of biblical principles that the Jewish community follows. And I don't say that I say it with all due respect. There are certain things that from the root of the Bible, principles and proverbs that are followed, and when they're followed, you will see success. And so I wanted to point some of those out through this series. I don't know how long it's going to go on. That's a God thing. I know it won't be forever, but there are certain things that God wants to bring forth, and I'm the messenger. So that's what we're doing here. So I appreciate all the guests here. I hope that you are, gleaning something for your life and for your business. And so that's the background behind what we do, or how and why this all started. Secret number one that we talked about was God wants us to be obsessively preoccupied with the needs of others. And as we go through with however many messages we have, that's the predominant one. Because when you can get your eye off yourself and you focus on somebody else, that's when you see fulfillment. And frankly, that's when you start seeing success. It's not about you. Nothing's about you. It feels like it's about you. When you're going through trials, or you're struggling through life, or you just struggle with your own needs of your own flesh needs. It feels like it's about you and nothing about you. So we have to be obsessively occupied with the needs of others. Secret number two, we were wired to work. We may all have dreams about slowing down and getting an RV and going to the islands and smoking cigars and drinking pina coladas. But guess what? That ain't the way it's supposed to be. You were wired to work. So you might have a desire to not have to work so hard. My desire, I'm sure that I will work every day I'm able to, God willing. But, I'm sure that will be a part of me. But my desire is that I don't have to work. You know what I mean? Like, I want the pressure off. I want my mortgage paid off. I don't want to have to work, but I will work probably every day of my life, because I see how my work is really all about God. It's not just about me and adding to my checkbook. So you were wired to work. It's time to accept that, embrace that, be happy about that. Your work doesn't stop until you stop. You were born and designed for a purpose, and nowhere will you be able to find it where God says, well, it's okay, now you're 65, you can just go off and play. Never. You have a purpose that doesn't stop until you stop. Secret number three is you got to be willing to change. We are not born in perfection. My goodness, we grow. We are formed by experiences in life. We are held back by experiences in life, and we always, whether it's in our relationships with other people, with our children, with our mate, with our business, we always have to be willing to change. I know it hurts. Now, I've been in so much pain I could scream like childbirth. I know it hurts, but we have to be willing to change. If we ever want to be better, and why wouldn't we want to be better? We have to be willing to change. Secret number four was we need other people. It's not just you want other people. If you're going to build a life and build a business, we need other people, especially for those of you on the call with me today that you desire to build a business. You can't do it in a bubble. Nice try. It's not going to happen. You need other people. There's got to be somebody out there that we do commerce with, okay? You need other people. Secret number five was you find a need and fill it. I've talked about, you might want to listen to that call again, because I talked about people in my life that showed me that, really doesn't matter if I need to make a living, I want to make a living. It really doesn't matter, what I want to do. If it's all about finding a need and filling it. And once we find a need and we fill it and we do it with excellence, we see, a lot of progress. I talked a little bit about how, in the Jewish community following these proverbs and principles, you don't see them say, well, I used to be a tailor, but I don't like that anymore. I think I can make more money, making shoes. You don't see that kind of thing. They find a need and they become people of excellence, and they focus on that need. They don't flit around like a lot of people do. Well, this isn't working, or that isn't working, or the grass is greener. They find something, they find a need, and they fill it, and they do it with excellence, and they find contentment and satisfaction by specializing in what they do and not focusing on what's out there that they might, run after next. Secret number 6 that we're going to talk about today is we have to become people. There's no way around. You got to be a people person. God designed you not to be alone. And frankly, guys, that's every area of your life. That is not just a marital relationship. It's every area of life. If that were not the case, why did the earth ever populate? God did not, expect you to live your life alone, and he doesn't expect you, frankly, to just live your life in a bubble with your significant other. Contrary to what you believe, your own comfort level and what you believe about yourself, what you believe you want, what you believe you desire, really doesn't matter, frankly, because God designed you not to be alone, and he designed you to connect with other people. This is true for personal fulfillment, and it's key for component for business. Did you know that the more intellectual people are, the higher IQ, basically, the generally less successful they are than other people? Isn't that interesting to think? The reason for that is because they're usually drawn more to academia. They're so intellectual that that's what they're drawn to. They're not people, and some are so drawn by intellect that they consider others that, less educated, for instance, or with a lower IQ to be almost inferior, because their whole being is satisfied just in that world of the intellectual things. They generally can't connect with other people that aren't, quote unquote, like them. You see, having a higher education, by the way, doesn't really have anything to do with what I'm talking about now. Plenty of people with higher education that, don't struggle with being stuck in this intellectual world. Obviously, they're bright, and obviously they've, earned the degrees that they need to have. But, we have people that strive to say, oh, if I just go out there, and if I had a degree, or if I had another degree, or if I had 2 degrees, if I had a degree at all, I could be so much more successful. That's not true. That's the paper that, a lot of jobs and opportunities will need, but that doesn't have anything to do with success. Success is going to come from being able to work and to connect with other people. These people, again, the intellectual types are usually drawn to the intellectual world, and the connectors are usually involved with everybody. But connecting for the benefit of God's plan, your personal fulfillment and your success has nothing to do with whether or not you're like another person. That's, again, what a lot of the intellectuals might be, and that's what a lot of us do. We look at it and say, we try to fill our world with people just like us. It's not supposed to be that way. If you think about it spiritually, I mean, you looked at a journey with Christ, that he went to the all broken people, nobody like him, okay? We're not supposed to just stick in this world. How can we ever strive to be different? How can we be more? How can we have a business if we're just looking for clones? It really can't happen. There's generally a big cognitive gap between people of high IQs that are in that intellectual world and their connectivity, and there's a big gap between that being that and their connectivity quotient, or the CQ, which is a direct correlation with the connection with other people. Your CQ, or your ability to connect, is a measure of your ability to establish, all connections. People with a high CQ, have more fulfillment, personal satisfaction, success, and frankly, they have better health and longevity. Why? Because it's not good for man to be alone. They get it. It's not again, that alone is not just, sitting on a remote across, sitting in a recliner across the room with a remote control. That's not what that is. So once again, this does not just pertain to the marital relationship. Man was not intended to be alone, period. And so, when you look at, again, the Jewish culture, the Jewish practice of the principles of the Bible, the fewer people you're involved with, the more disconnected you'll be. So the more you keep yourself in a bubble, the more you're going to be in a bubble. We hear this sometimes in our business. We hear people, coming into the business that think, well, I just don't really want to go anywhere or do anything. I don't want to be out there, not comfortable being out there. I'll just do all mine online. It's not possible, guys. You need more than that. It's not possible. So I guess truth number 1 for yourself would be, you have to understand that you're going to need other people, the connectivity with other people, to success in our world. So the more disconnected you are, the less happy you'll be. You may not realize that now, but when you make some changes, you'll see it. If you're disconnected, you're less happy, you're less healthy, and you'll even be less wealthy because of it. You might just be going paycheck to paycheck, happy to have 2 people in the house, and everybody's okay, but that's not enough. There was a study done in 1971 of the correlation between marriage against, or a significant relationship and mortality. And this study found that the annual mortality of single people was 3 to 5 times higher than married people. Boy, if I say that to enough people on this line, they're going to be out there on Match.com, right? But the correlation there of having a relationship, a significant relationship with a loved one, whether it be marriage or long-term relationship, is 3 times higher, for single people, our mortality rate. So, there are powerful studies also done on things like military camaraderie, the way they connect, and the way when people go through battle, military people, they go through battle, they go through injury and all that. The survival rate of massive injury is so much greater if they have good camaraderie with their platoon. Much, much greater. It's that connection that gives us power, that gives us strength. It's a powerful thing, and something that we really can't ignore. Friendship, in any way, business friendship, personal friendship, it aids your health and your happiness. There was also another study that was done on what gives people pleasure, what really makes them have this true core pleasure. And what they came up with was it was having strong friendships with as many people as possible, but the primary focus and sense of happiness and well-being was so greater for those people who actually had a full world. So if relationships are that important for us personally, if we have single people or people isolated, solo people, if you will, if we have a much greater mortality rate, if we have a less ability to be happy and find fulfillment, if our world is really small, how important do you think that is for your business? If it's important for you personally, well, how important is it for you professionally? God does not want humans to live or to be alone. That's not the design of things. If you know the Bible, you recall that you don't see or hear about people, written about people that are just out there in the desert by themselves. I mean, there might be a season here and there that I can think of where people were wandering through the desert alone, searching. But you know what God did? He connected them with somebody to help them. Over and over and over and over we see this. We do not hear about some guy sitting in the desert by himself in his tent. That's not what we hear about. We hear about the connection. You see God doing it over and over and over. Connection is the key to fulfillment, and it's the key to success. When the railroad system was first built in America, it was followed by massive wealth, because suddenly that people had the ability to connect beyond just their little community. They had the ability to move out beyond that, and the more connections that we have, the more wealth that we have, the bigger business that we have. Same is true with, when the telegraph and the telephone came along, our world of connections became broader, and this was all followed by tremendous, tremendous wealth. Saw it next with the internet in our world, didn't we? I mean, there wasn't just money made because of the dot-coms and all of these technology that came out, or the computer development age, or applications or whatever. The real benefit with that whole internet world came because we're now connected globally, billions of people. But God created a world with an economy that rewards connections when you think about it. The more connected you are, the more ability you have to create your own wealth. So that's why God connects it. But the interesting thing, and something I had a revelation several years ago, I guess, where I was at this place in my life, and as a person of faith, I was like, man, I wish I didn't have to work. I wish I could just go serve God. He made it abundantly clear to me that it all is hand in hand. My faith is to go into the workplace, and the workplace is a way to feed my faith. It's all hand in hand. It's all interconnected by Him. So, our economy, and it actually absolutely is a direct correlation with our connections. We were made by Him to be connected. So this message is clearly one brought forth to raise a connection about our business, but we can't help, or I can't help myself when I say that God expects us all to go forth and to reach as many people as we possibly can. So, you may not share my faith, and this is no judgment of your faith, but in my faith, I know that I'm called to go out and talk to as many people as I can and give them the good news, okay? That's what I know I'm supposed to do. And if we have a God that understands we also need to eat, don't you think that connection has more purpose than one? It has a big purpose. And I think with those of us on the line that are in the Enagic business, we know if we look very closely and ponder the mission statement of our founder, who also shares my faith, it says it's spreading true health globally with compassion. Compassion is being obsessively preoccupied with the needs of others, That connectivity has a multi-purpose. So even if you're sitting there and you're having trouble, with what I'm sharing with you today, if you're a person of faith, can you really justify sitting there with your significant other, you're connected, you feel like you're happy. Can you really justify sitting in the recliner with the remote night after night and day after day and day? You can't do that, guys. We were made to connect with other people, so why not go for it and make the best of it in every way, right? Take your faith to the workplace or get out and connect with as many people as you possibly can. If you ignore this truth, it's at your own personal and professional risk, frankly. Anyone who works in this life, whether you're in business with us, whether you go out and you earn a paycheck for somebody else, everybody who works is in business. And we talked about that a couple weeks ago. This is an important concept to embrace, because when we do, everything, it's a game changer. Everything changes. You guys in our business, you know what it's like to go out and meet somebody, maybe in a waitress in a restaurant, or a clerk in a store or whatever, and you're just like wowed by them. You're so wowed by them. What are you wowed by? We look at them for our business and say, wow, this would be a great person in our business. They're so friendly, and they're serving with excellence, and they're putting my needs above their own, right? You're seeing in them the character of connection. That's what you're seeing. And you know why you're seeing that? Because that person that's working with excellence is not looking at that just as a job. They have a different mentality. They're looking at it as being able to serve. They feel more like they're in business, And so that's an important concept for us to look at. And when we do, and we embrace it, everything changes. The company that writes your paycheck each week is not your employer, it's not your boss, but it should be considered as your primary customer. In fact, it might be the only customer you have if you only work one job, but you provide a service to that customer, and if you do it well, you get paid. See, it's a whole different mindset when you follow the principles as set forth for us in the Bible. It's a whole different mindset. You're not a slave. It's by having that slave mentality that we never see success. It's this mindset that puts us on track to desire to work with excellence. When you have a business, you want to serve your customer well. If you consider your boss your customer, you want to serve that boss with excellence. You have the desire to do more for them, to serve them. You're motivated to do your best, not your least, that you can get by with. You got to get out of the slave mentality and get into the business mentality. People in line, for instance, at a grocery store, that employer, the food store might be the one the check comes from, but the cashier there should put everybody in line, is not just the only customer, the boss is the customer too. What it boils down to is people generally feel an obligation to their customers that they don't feel toward their employer, and that's why there isn't success, right? Employer you're in business with them. And even if they only have one customer, if you only have one customer, your boss, you still have you still need to look at that as your business. Successful people value and serve and honor their boss as much or more than the other customers that they greet or they do business with as part of that business. When you realize that, you see a breakthrough. That's what the people that you're impressed by working in the stores or the restaurants or wherever you're looking to recruit people, they already get it, and that's why you're drawn to them, because they're treating the whole world that way. When you realize this again, it's major breakthrough. Let me give you a good example here that maybe you can relate to. Many things when people got busy at work, let's say there's a big crisis, something blew up, it's a horrible crisis, and it's time we got to get through this crisis. The employee mindset is something like this: well, I just want to go home. They think that let somebody else do it, or it's not my company, why do I care? Or I don't make the big bucks, that's why they make the big bucks. I'm going home, it's not my problem. And I can guarantee you that most people on this call have had that thought. When something goes wrong, it's like they want me to do everything. I mean, you have that employee mindset. But if you own that business, if you thought of that boss as your customer, wouldn't you have a whole different attitude? You'd have a whole attitude of excellence and service that you don't have when you sit there with a slave mentality and not with a business mentality. So by thinking of your employer as your customer, everything changes and we start seeing success. We value the customer, and guess what, folks? They value us back. I often say, share with people that, and now's not the time, it's too long a story, but, I call myself a street kid. I had a hard upbringing in terms of we moved around a lot and, just everywhere, 21 places by the time I'm a freshman in high school, that caused one really good thing in my life, a lot of hang-ups that I've had to overcome. But one really good thing in my life is I had to be a connector. You plop a kid in a new school over and over. You know what I did out of desperation? I looked for the kids that I thought would be the popular kids because they wouldn't be picked on as much as everybody else, and I figured out a way to connect with them. It was my survival, and that has gone into my life. Now it's part of what you see in me is that I'm a connector. You know, that's what I want. I want to be around those people, and I seek those people out. I did it in self-defense, but it served me well. You know, and we have to really be looking at how can we serve other people, how do we put their needs above our own, and how do we connect with them. You know, when we talked about, hey, it's not my problem, I'm going to go home, it's the boss's problem, there's certain worlds you don't see that in. I would doubt very seriously that you would ever talk to a doctor and they're working at the hospital and a big crisis happened, the ER fills up and they say, it's not my problem, let the hospital deal with it. It's not my problem. They don't do that. They look at the whole thing as a purpose, right? It's a whole different mentality that so many people are missing, and frankly, they're missing it in our business too. Because, you know, one thing that we hear over and over is people making excuses and whining about why other people aren't doing things to help them out. You know, they're not putting their purpose is not in alignment, if you will. But, you know, another side of this is idleness is not God's plan for us, you know, at all. And, you know, we're taking care of business is the best example for a role model in a family, isn't it? When we take care of business, when we're willing to say, you know what, I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to be late again tonight, honey. There was a plane crash and I'm in the ER and I'm helping these. That's a role model there, right? You know, I heard a story as I was preparing for this. I read a story actually about a waitress that was going through a similar class like this, and she was you know, single mom, you know, trying to make it, never having enough money, trying to understand how do I make this whole connection, you know, excuse me, I said she was a waitress, she was actually working in a food store. So she goes, like, how do I make this whole connection? She just was hungering to do better for her family. You don't know what single momhood's like, let me tell you. And I can't imagine, thank you, Jesus, I didn't have to go through it, you know, with a waitress kind of or a minimum wage kind of job, you know, but going through that is so very difficult, you know. So she was so eager to get past this, you know. The people, she listened to this and she applied the same principles. Instead, she was trying to look at her boss as her customer, and the people that came through her line as just more customers, you know. So the people in the grocery line to her, they were important to her. They became important to her. She took care of them. And when she had this realization, it completely changed her world. She didn't think like an hourly employee anymore. She thought she was part of the game, right? Her boss was her customer. And she started, you know, the more she applied these principles, the more she didn't just say, you know, drag things through a grocery line and will you get out of here? You guys, 90% of the time, that's what we see, people flopping food around like, you know, they're miserable, right? They're standing there miserably because they don't see the value of anything that they're doing. But when she flipped this corner, she turned this corner, she didn't think like an hourly employee anymore. Guess what happened? In 6 months, everything that she had been taught, as she applied these principles and she started working with excellence, you know what? She got recognized and she got recruited right out of that grocery store checkout line and offered a job in a real estate office as the front person there. Because as people saw in her, like we do, when we see people out there that stand out, that's the characteristic that you're looking for. They're people that are putting the needs of others first. They don't have a slave mentality. They don't have a resentment for their boss and everything that they have to do to get there. They look at it all as an opportunity. It all comes together. And so that's just one story that we could read of millions of people that, you know, were able to do that transition. Get out of that mindset. If you think like a slave, you're going to be a slave, always. If you think like an hourly employee, you're going to be an hourly employee, always. It doesn't have anything to do with the size of the checkbook that you have. It has everything to do with your connectivity and whether you're willing to step out there and look at your life and the people around you in a different light. So God wants you to be a people person. You know, and that doesn't come naturally for everybody, does it? I mean, I could probably look at the the phone log here and see people that have left this call, because that's what we're talking about. You know, God wants you to be a people person, and it doesn't come naturally for everybody. I know for me, again, I'm blessed to have gone through my adversity, because that did make me a people person. I needed to survive, man. You know, so it made me that people person. But I see it; it doesn't come naturally. The fact that you aren't a people person is something you can change, you know, but so many people embrace it. I'm not like you. I'm shy. I don't know what to say to people. I don't know what to do around people. I don't know how to walk in a room and talk to people. All those things may be, valid things. You might say that you can't, but you can. Everybody can change. Plenty of people don't see themselves as a people person. Plenty of people think they're shy. Plenty of people get anxiety. So what do you do if you fall into that category? Well, if you're that person, you got to learn to change. We've already talked about change, haven't we? There is no fulfillment, success, growth, moving beyond where you are this very second in your life unless you're willing to change. But we also talked about in an earlier lesson that people are the one thing that God created that can change. He's given us a mind. He's given us a will. He's given us all the things that we need to change. If you doubt that, you can go back and read the Bible and see change and change and change and change, right? Animals don't change. They just go about and they find, they kill, they eat, they do it over and over and over again. People are the only thing in God's creation that have the ability to change. It's just a matter of whether you'll do it or not. You have the ability to change, and there's no other way to succeed in business. Don't say you can't. Start saying you can. And there might be some people on this call, maybe you're kind of in transition. You still have a job, which is great, right? And you're trying to build your business. But this is true for you as well. As long as you have that job, you need to change your mindset about that boss. You got to start working it from some place, some foundational place, and start connecting the dots. So, again, humans can change. Animals don't change. We can always change. In the Jewish community, again, those that are devout, following these principles, they understand that that's the root of human fulfillment. We have people, we see it everywhere, where people will maybe feel depressed and they'll hit the holidays, any holiday, primarily the major holidays, and they'll start getting depressed. We see it. The suicide rate goes way up. When you look at, Thanksgiving, it gets worse at Christmas, right? Because they see their lives as being, nothing happened, nothing's different. This year is the same old year. I'm still alone, or I'm still broke, or I'm still unhappy, or whatever those root things are. Because why? Not because they couldn't have been different, because they chose to not try to make it different. And so we always have that ability to change, and we see that peak and fall, and it's not enough in life, guys, to stand still. Growth produces happiness. Growth always, comes with pain. Kind of crazy. For ladies on the call, I guess we could kind of look at it like childbirth, right? I'm going to give birth. I think I'm going to die, but the end result is going to be the most beautiful thing. And the same thing is true, with change. It's going to hurt. And I can't make the decision for you whether you're willing to endure it. Only you can make that decision. It's going to be painful, but it's got to be a deliberate thing. It doesn't just happen overnight. This is also forgive me if I step on toes, but what I see is a weakness sometimes in the Christian community, where people will say, yeah, I'm going to pray about that. I'm going to pray God changes me. Let me tell you something. God gave you a mind. He gave you a will. He gave you the ability to learn and speak and change and connect. You can stop praying now, okay? Because he's already equipped you to do these things. You might need his strength. You might need to ask for wisdom. His word says, if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask, and I'll give it abundantly. You might need those things. But I see people sitting on a park bench saying, well, I'm just going to ask God to change me, and then if he does, then I'll be able to do that. And if he doesn't, well, I guess he just didn't want me to change. Those are lies we tell ourselves, right? So don't get caught up in that. God wants you to be all that you were designed to be. He wants you to have a full life. He doesn't want you sitting in that bubble in the living room in a recliner with the remote. He doesn't want it. He wants you and expects you to be a people person. And for me, being that people person is a message far greater than just the business I do or the tool that I have to help people restore their health. It's much greater than that, because it all intertwines, There's no magic pill that's going to make things comfortable for you as you start to change, But I promise you two things. It's going to hurt, but it's going to be amazing if you're willing to do it. And how do I know that? Because, again, you're a human being and not an animal. And according to the Bible, there is always change. So before you get there, you have to be willing to move forward. Nobody else can make you. Again, we see a lot of finger pointing when we get into a business like ours. Well, I'm not motivated. There's nobody up there motivating me. Well, I'm not doing that because nobody else is doing that. Well, I'm okay. Nobody's making money in this business just because you're not making money in this business. You think nobody else is? Come on, guys. It's time to take personal responsibility for who you are, what you are, how you are and where you're going. There's a whole lot more play in this whole cycle of life that we do have, because God designed us to be more than just an animal. He had designed us to with that will and that ability to learn and to change. So the internet's been great in connecting people online, but in a lot of ways I think people, have a false sense of where they really are. You might be saying, well, I talk to people every day. I mean, I got friends on the internet, and we talk and we do the business, and I'm helping them with certain things. It's not the same thing. There's nothing you can say about the internet and that connectivity to sell me. Because, I've worked social media for a long time for my business, okay? And I understand. I have met some wonderful people. I'm looking forward to the event in October, because I get to actually meet the wonderful people that I've met, online through Facebook primarily, but I understand the difference. And I think that whole internet thing can be very deceiving to a lot of people. Unless you've got some one-on-one going on, unless you pick up the phone and you spend time, or you go meet with people, or you get out of the living room, out of the recliner, and put the remote down, you're not really making those connections. There's a false sense of security. So be careful yourself there with what you really think you have in your life based on the internet, and what you really have in your life based on relationships. Now, there are some that actually evolve into true, meaningful relationships, but often those people, if you call them in the middle of the night, will they be there? Will you actually be able to move them forward, with your business or whatever it is you're trying to do? Will that really be meaningful? And for most of the people that you might be counting as friends, they're just not. The scriptures actually reveal the importance of us going face to face countless times. I love Moses, and I love the relationship that Moses had with God, and you see that when he references in Exodus 33, he talks about Moses being the kind of, that he was speaking to Moses as a friend. How cool is that, right? So, that word, Hebrew for face, face to face, is the same as the word that's used for the word inside. In other words, it's internalizing. It's not just a physical, face to face. It's an internal thing when you go face to face. The face actually reveals what's going on in the outside, right, or the inside, right? So as you're making changes, you're wanting to have a broader world, you're wanting to connect, and you're looking at what you can do. A lot of what you do is the way you deal with other people. It's not just what you say. It's actually your demeanor. God gives a face with 50 muscles. He expects you to use them. I was actually getting my nails done, a couple weeks ago, and there's a woman in this salon, and she works there. I think she's the owner there. And I'm going to tell you something. That woman looks miserable. And I've tried to smile, and she'll crack this tiny little smile, but then it goes right back to misery. And I've tried to talk to her about my world, to see about changes for her, but she doesn't talk. She just looks flipping miserable. And so the last time I was in there, I said, I can't help it anymore. Every time I come in here, you look so unhappy. Are you unhappy? And she went on to tell me about, how great her life is. And I'm thinking, well, how in the world was anybody going to know that with this look? So you can change things. Science will show us, and studies will show us, that people that have more animation about them, in their expression or their voice or whatever, they're the ones that people will migrate to. It's the people that are humdrum, I don't know, hardly smile. So what am I getting at here? As a person who used to do an awful lot of Dale Carnegie training, I can tell you, you can change everything. You can change the way your voice sounds to other people. You can work on your voice. You can practice sounding excited. You can work on your inflection. You can work on your expression. You've seen, maybe you've never had the nerve to go through a training where it says, we're going to record you, and you can look at yourself, or go look in the mirror when you say something. These are things, frankly, guys, again, it's different than an animal. An animal may not change an expression to try to trick another animal, but human beings can change their expression to try to bless another human being. So it's never enough. The moral of the story is to just say, I am what I am. This is the way God made me. This is the way my life is, and be satisfied with that, because you're fooling yourself. That is not the way it all is supposed to be. You are who God designed you to be. And if you refuse to look for how big and how far that goes, that's your problem. It's not. Where you were never intended to be designed, to be made, to be brought into this world, to sit in your recliner with your remote control and never connect with other people. So what that looks like for you and how it starts, I don't know. You know, maybe you have somebody close to you that you could talk to about how you could go about getting out of that shell, but it also starts with you. If you've never been a connector, you might want to look in that mirror. Seriously, work on your voice. Would I want to listen to me? I mean, be real, guys. Would I want to listen to me? Would I listen to that voice? I actually, in the auction business, I actually had an auction school, believe it or not. I did a lot of coaching to women because, you know, when women sing, for instance, if they're not careful, they're inclined to sing higher than their voice, and they'll strain the vocals. And the same is true when they become auctioneers. You know, they naturally try to go up higher, and if you go up higher, you're going to strain your vocals. So I did a lot of coaching there, you know. But there's so many times I've just said to people, oh my gosh, you know, well, you got to look excited. You got to work on that voice. You got to do something. I know you can change a voice. You can. You don't change the tone of the voice necessarily, but you absolutely can add inflection. Good example being people that learn to control their voice and learn to be auctioneers. So you know what, guys? Anything can change. I'm a believer in tomorrow. I look at today and I say, okay, I've had adversity all morning long. If you understand my faith, you understand why I've got adversity. The power went out. I lost all my notes for this call. We get on this call and the audio is not working. It doesn't matter to me because you know what? I know I can change. I know my world will change. I know that I keep moving forward. I keep practicing the principles that I know lead to success, fulfillment, happiness, joy in every area of my life. And so you got to be a people person. There's no way around it. If you're, you know, trying to do our business and you really want to do the business, but you're shrugging your shoulders and saying, but I'm not a people person, guys, you got to change it. If you got to change it, you got to make a decision to do something else. You cannot go out and start and run a business unless you're willing to change, first of all, unless you're willing to connect with other people, because that's the way God designed it. God designed man to never be alone, and that is not just the marital relationship. It's every single way. The more people in our lives, the more success we see. That's the bottom line, and I'm going to hope here as I go, if anybody wants to raise their hand, I'm not sure that anything has changed, but you just never know. So I'm going to actually see if somebody out there wanted to comment on this message this morning, see if we have technology issues that maybe somehow miraculously resolve themselves. If not, I'll just conclude the call here in just a minute. And anybody out there? I guess you can't raise your hand either, huh? Okay, I've got Brenda here. So I'm going to try you, Brenda, and see if it'll unmute out. Be sure you're unmuted on your end. Are you there, Brenda?
Yes, can you hear me,
Okay.
Lynn?
We still have problems. So there you go. Adversity that I'm not surprised by. Thank you, guys. We have almost 100 people on this call. For everyone that stayed with us through this challenge and knowing that you're not going to be able to participate the way you're supposed to, I thank you for that. I thank you for, through your prayers. Thank you for your support. I hope this message has resonated with you and that you understand the importance of being a people person. I don't know what next week's message is. I never know until I get it. So I guess I'll see you next week on that. Thank you for being here. God bless you. You guys go make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.